Good morning, everybody. I'm Ann Trufant. Welcome to Kingdom Conversations. This is my dear friend, Dr. Jamie Ramsey, and we've asked her to tell you some of the stories, some of the ways that God has broken in profoundly into her world in her practice as an OBGYN. So, welcome. Thank you for coming, and
Thank you.
it's yours.
So, in the world of obstetrics, there are many joyful moments, but there are also some moments that sometimes feel hopeless. They feel punishing at times, and sometimes they're hard to understand. And when I was a young OBGYN, right out of residency, I don't know if I fully believed that miraculous things could happen. You see a lot of heartache and a lot of things that don't go well. But I really truly believe that I've seen 3 miracles since I've been an OBGYN. I started my residency in 2007 and finished in 2011, so I've been out for 9.5 years, plus the 4 years of residency. So 13 years of miracles. So the first miracle, the one that really humbled me, was I was 1 year out of residency, 1.5 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I had a 6-month-old baby, our second child, and I was doing full-time OBGYN. I was on labor and delivery with a family that had been my patients, both the patient and her sister-in-law, for a long time. I had been through good times and bad with this family, and I was so excited that they were going to welcome their second child into the family. And I was there on labor and delivery, and we always watched the monitoring strips. She was full-term, and the strip just did not, there were some questions. So I went into the room, sat with the patient, adjusted the monitors. Still just, things didn't look bad, but they weren't reassuring. So I got the ultrasound out, I looked, everything looked okay, but I just, there just wasn't enough reassurance that I thought she should continue in labor. It wasn't a very low heart rate, there were some question marks. And so I said, number one, you've got to have a healthy baby. So we went back for a C-section. And we listened to the heartbeat right before we started, and the heartbeat was very low all of a sudden. And so I did a stat C-section. I'd had the baby delivered in less than a minute. And the baby at delivery, I was astonished. The baby was pale, had a very weak heart rate, was not breathing at all. I handed it right off to the NICU doctors. They called a full code on the baby, and the baby was in terrible condition. It gives me chills to this day. It's my worst day on labor and delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't believe it because there were no signs that this baby was in full distress. Right. It was so unexpected. And the baby had looked great all day on the monitor. And we had acted in a timely manner. Right. So they did a full code on the baby. The baby's first APGAR was 1. At 5 minutes, the APGAR was still 1. That means it wasn't breathing. It had a very low heartbeat. Full-term, beautiful baby. The baby was intubated, taken up to the NICU, and it took until 15 minutes for them to get a normal heartbeat on this baby. And they were giving it all the resuscitation medications, everything. And, I know the family was grieving. As an OBGYN, I was grieving. You never want to see anything like that happen to your patients. And it was just so unexplained. When bad things happen, sometimes you expect that.
Right.
But this was not.
And you were brand new.
Yeah, I was a year and a half
Yeah.
out of residency. And so I went up to the NICU. You know, the neonatologist used the word hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy. And that's a terrible word to hear. You know, that means that the baby was deprived of oxygen long enough that its brain was affected. And so they had the baby on the cooling protocol where they chill the baby to try to preserve the organs where the damage isn't quite as bad. So they bring the temperature down to about 92. You know, the baby was on full support, machine breathing for it, everything. Over the next week, things just went downhill. Eventually, the baby's kidneys started shutting down. All the labs looked terrible. The CT scan showed inflammation in the brain. And I was just, you know,
Correct.
crushed.
Yeah.
Every day I was going to the family, talking to them, praying with them. At night I would come home and, you know, I would cry. It's hard for me to take care of my own family. I couldn't sleep at night, but this is what doctors go through when we have a bad situation like that. So it seemed hopeless. And I just could not accept that a healthy, full-term baby could turn into a baby that's not going to make it or going to be severely affected that fast. So I went to the priest at Sacred Heart one night. After I left the hospital, I called him and said, I really need to talk. You know, I need prayers. So I went up to his office and he prayed with me, prayed for the baby deeply. I cried the whole time probably. And that's the first time I've ever gone to the priest in a situation like that because I'm a fairly new Catholic. And I didn't know much about saints at the time, so, you know, he talked to me about some saints that could intervene. And we just prayed hard. And every day I went to the baby's bedside, got on my knees and prayed. And within 2 days of going to the priest, the baby's labs started to turn around. Within one more day, the baby woke up and was interacting. And it was unbelievable. I mean, miraculous. Within one more week, the baby went home from the NICU. Not on oxygen, not on anything. A healthy, full-term baby. And now the kid is 8 years old, rambunctious, healthy boy, does great in school, no problems whatsoever.
Wow.
Miraculous. A miraculous turnaround.
Which must have been such a blessing and a shock to every doctor in the place. Yeah.
Absolutely. They couldn't believe it. You know, it's when I really truly started believing in miracles. And I know that if we don't ask, if we don't pray for miracles, they might not happen. They might, but I think we need to expect miracles and fully put our mind in that spot that it's going to happen.
That God's view of what is possible is very different than the worldview, even with the best medical care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the human diagnosis is not the final word.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. That's